It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, September 26th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that really did not want to start the preseason that way.
No, it was a terrible start.
All right, we're going to talk about that game against the Devils, and we're going to talk about who has earned more playing time versus who has a lot more to learn, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at @rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. And we are on all your favorite apps at Locked On Flyers as well. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You can subscribe or follow us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we could not start the Flyers season or even preseason without some drama. So Travis Konechny was banged up a little bit, kept out of the scrimmage on Sunday, and wasn't going to play in this game. And then, right before game time, as warm-up started, we noticed Cam Atkinson's not out on the ice, and Wade Allison is there in his spot. He is apparently a little sore, and they didn't want to take any chances in the preseason. It was lower body, nothing related to his past injury. So off to a good start.
It may not be anything related to his past injury, but it's related to not playing, and so I still worry about that. That's an issue. Like, he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to get out there for the first game," and then all of a sudden, he can't. We'll keep an eye on it, but it's not great news.
No, it isn't. So, him and Konechny, we're definitely gonna have to see what happens there. Wade Allison got the chance. We'll get into whether or not he was able to take advantage of it when we dig into the details of the game, which was coached by Ian LaPerriere. We talked about wanting to have Torts behind the bench so that he could get to know some of the newer guys and just like really be at ice level and have the guys respond to him as the coach and not Lappy. And so, while you understand him wanting to watch it from the press box for some reasons in terms of, getting a bird's eye view as to how some of the guys are performing, it's still like not an ideal thing for the season and getting the season going.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad look when he's up in the press box and they lose 6-0. It's not like it's terrible losing a preseason game, but I mean, it just, if people were to ask me, well, hey, why does he do it? And I gave that answer you gave, you're going to get a 50-50 split on, like, half of them are going to say why. Actually, more is probably 70-30, like, why.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think, there's definitely some pros and cons there. And when you're losing 6-0, I think, maybe there's some motivational issues and you want to be able to figure out how to work with each other on the bench. And you're missing that time. The 6-0 loss was also, I think it hurt a little bit more because the Devils were actually split squad last night. The Jack Hughes line was actually up in Montreal. So, it wasn't even like their top players. Now, the Flyers had some of their top players out and not others, but I do think all things considered, like the Flyers should have played better.
I mean, there's a talent gap there, Rachel. We can't deny it. Even with who the Devils had on the ice, they were faster, they were bigger in some cases, they were just better, and they were better coached. And it's just, there is no way to get around that. And that's why for when there's this talk about magically getting better in the Metro. There's no way to do it magically. It's going to be really hard work because everybody is good in that division. Everybody, including the Columbus Blue Jackets, they're all good. They all have more talent than the Flyers do right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be real interesting to see how the rest of this preseason goes, given everything. In this game in particular, I think first off, they got off to a terrible start.
Terrible.
Very discombobulated, left Peterson out to dry, I think, a little bit. Now, Peterson was not really helping himself either, but I think
Now, with those
that
first two goals were just
no. Yeah, there was some definite, like, miscommunication happening in the defensive zone, I think, even, like, between the defensemen on the pairings and the defense and the forwards, because the outlet passes just weren't happening, and then between the whole team and the goaltending. So I
right.
really think that's just a huge issue right off the bat.
It is, and it's just it's a little disconcerting because the Devils had none of those problems. None of them.
No. None of them. They played such a well-structured defense
Yeah,
in this game. The Flyers were outshot 34-21. It was, like, even worse in the first 2
it's a
periods, I think, than
21 to
the last
8.
period. Yeah. Yeah, it was real bad, and, there really isn't any excuse here. You could say, "Oh, were they tired because 'cause they've been worn out from all the scrimmages?"
No,
But, like, that's just not even an excuse.
it's not. No matter how you do it, no matter how your camp is, you look at the Devils and you say, "Well, their camp's working." Like it just is, and especially missing some of their top guys. I mean, again, the Flyers were missing a few, but it's would have they would have gotten maybe 2 goals out of those guys, and that's that. I mean, Joel Farabee was out there. I noticed him once or twice. We'll get into the nitty gritty details, but from the bigger picture, uh, if I'm Danny Briere, I think I'm talking to John Tortorella, like, and say, listen, I I understand we're rebuilding here, but I do want these young guys to have more interaction with you in game, and this is the only way to
Yeah.
do it. By the second game, they're all going to get sent back. Some will get sent back after this one, but most will get sent back after the second one, and it's going to be the same thing as last year.
Yeah, I think that is a huge concern. Face-offs also brutal in
Oh
this game, 59 to 41% in favor of the Devils. Now, I will say it was a good sign. Sean Couturier was 6-3 in his face-offs, so he
yeah,
was well above 50%. Very happy to see that.
that
That's
was
for
about the
sure.
only part of his game that looked good. I mean, a lot of it did not look good.
Yeah, I think it was definitely rust. It feels like he was a little tentative
Oh, he was definitely
in.
tentative going in the corners, and
Yeah.
yeah, he was
So I
reaching for some pucks that he wasn't gonna go full out for. Like, so we'll have to just see what happens with him, and how it progresses.
Yeah, I feel like this is something that's just gonna take some time, and I think
Mhm.
he even would admit that it's
Yeah, I
gonna
think
take
so too.
some time, but, like, some of the, like, specific skills like that looked really good.
Mhm.
So, I do have, really, strong positive feelings about Sean Couturier
Sure.
in this game, and I think that was something very important for us to figure out, this early. So very, very glad about that. As far as other standouts go, very few and, and far between here. Joel Farabee, to your point, I think did all right. I think he was struggling just because he didn't have help in a lot of situations where you
Mhm.
would see him skate or he would have the puck and have nobody to pass it to because nobody was in the right spot. So I felt pretty okay about Farabee's game, but as far as the vets go, anyone else?
No, I mean York struggled. Um, no, I mean, that's the thing. Kevin Ball looked better than Cam York, and Kevin Ball's only
Mhm.
got 75 games in at the NHL level, and that's something where that was pretty apparent. Again, got to beat a dead horse on this. They don't have Ivan Provorov anymore, so anyone who was thinking that Provorov stinks or get rid of him, whatever, now you see the devastating results of not having a guy like that. And the worry is there's nobody there that could actually step into his shoes. They're going to have somebody do it, but they're not going to be able to do it that way. And he did hide a lot of ills. He did.
He did. Yeah, Cam York had a turnover that led to the fourth goal. He was out there on the PK when Timo Meyer scored in the second period. He took a penalty that cut a power play
Yep.
short. Cam York was definitely on the struggle bus this game.
Yeah, no question about it. And that's the thing. I mean, he's a guy that you have to look at and say, are you going to be able to step up and step into one of those roles? Like that's something that you're looking at. So yeah, he's got to do much better. And honestly, a lot of them do. But, you know, again, off of that game, nobody's getting promoted. So they
No.
got to play harder.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into more about this game and some prospects we got to keep an eye on, as well as what Wirtz has been saying about the training camp so far, and we will do that coming up next.
Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get into the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
We'll have more on Flyers training camp this week, as well as a preview of the second preseason game against the New York Islanders on tomorrow's show. And we're going to have our mailbag. So get those questions in. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail.com, send us a DM over on Twitter, or comment on our YouTube channel. All right. So I think, part of the issue here too is that I don't necessarily think the lines were put together in a way to help some of these guys succeed. Now, having Allison step in there in the last minute, they shifted something around. So Atkinson was supposed to be with Frost and Lixell, which I
Right.
think would have been better. So they moved up Tyson Forster to that line and put Wade Allison in with Barkey and Brown for at least a portion of the game. I know they
Right.
switched stuff up a little bit, but I really think they should have kept it as is and just slotted Wade Allison in, because I would want to see him with Lixell and on a line centered by Frost. I think that maybe would have done better for him. I mean, Allison was just getting hammered out there. I think he went down hard like at least 3 times in
Oh,
that
Ball
game.
knocked his helmet off. It was bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know that maybe it was a last minute thing of him going
Mhm.
into the game and he just wasn't doing his
Maybe.
normal prep, but Allison just felt like he was a little step behind his usual game, right?
Yeah, no question. And but again, what that may be is exactly what you said. Uh, Having to move up in that line comment in lines and having to face tougher competition on the Devils' end may have, that may have just affected them.
Yeah. Uh, Talking about a couple of guys that really needed to show something that were MIA, Samu Tuamala was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Uh, just brutal. Denoye, didn't notice him at all. It was just not good for some of those, like, trying to at least prove they belong
Yeah, I
guys,
mean,
right?
look, when like for someone like Barkey, who is getting some penalties and such, he's a young guy. Like it's fine. I have no
Yeah,
problem. I'm not going to really criticize him. He's just, that's fine. We have no expectations right now for a guy like that. Even Matt Brown, I noticed a few times at least getting up and down the ice and not making mistakes.
sure.
It was something, um, but yeah, even I do question having Bonk and Sealer together. It's like, are you trying to tell us that Bonk is the offensive guy in that situation? Because he's not really that offensive. And I just didn't see how that was a good pairing. So I think that was something that maybe affected Bonk. Luckily, he's not hurt because he blocked that shot. But again,
Right.
I just didn't. When I saw that as an actual pairing, I was like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, and they seem to be, like, locked into this Emile Andre Helge Grans pairing. And I really think they need to break it up in order to really get a better sense of both of them.
Well,
I just
what they're trying to do is trying to turn Gronz into, a defensive defenseman, and so in that case, that's why they're doing it with Andre, and so he would run the offensive part of those shifts. But uh, I'm kind of with you right now. I don't know if he's there yet. I mean, Walker did okay. At least he can
yeah.
skate. Uh, it's a low bar, Rachel. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah,
But
I know it is really difficult here, but I think that if you look at what John Tortorella has said and continues to say in terms of what he's looking for, I was trying to focus on, okay, guys who made mistakes, did they come back from them? I would
right,
say mixed bag on that,
yes,
just because I think it was tough against these Devils who didn't allow them really to come back. But I think it really was more evident on the blue line, to your point, that they were making mistakes, but really couldn't come back from it. They
no,
couldn't get the outlet passes. And
no,
so when they would get beat, that first goal, they got beat real bad
oh yeah.
and left Peterson open. And so, like, the blue line, I just don't think ever had a chance to get settled in this game at all.
Yeah, the blue line, I mean, the forwards didn't play much defense. That was the thing that hurt them. The
Mhm.
Devils did everything right. I'm telling you, they just, again, it's a sign of a good organization when even those young players can step in like that and look that cohesive. And again, it's a red flag for the Flyers that there was no cohesion at times. And so, are we supposed to blame Ian LePerrier? I'm not. This is John
Mm-mm.
Tortorella's camp. These are his guys. And it's almost like you look at it like, does John try and like just, you know, keep away from this because he knows these matchups aren't going to be good. So this way he could say, well, I was upstairs, this is, it's not on me. I don't know. I don't understand the mentality of it. I have to believe they would have done better had he been on the bench, though. I just feel that way.
Yeah, I think one player that really could have benefited from Torts being on the bench is Morgan Frost, and
Yes.
he talked specifically, Torts did on Sunday about Morgan Frost and said he needs to keep progressing. He was better Sunday than Saturday at the scrimmages, and he progressed last season, but he needs to keep moving that needle in the right direction. And we know how Torres feels about Morgan Frost. Like we know that there's always like he's like walking a thin line here, and I think not having Torres on the bench really does Morgan Frost a disservice in terms of the communication and being like, okay, what are we doing this shift? Like, are we going to make any changes?
Right.
Really, like, I just really feel strongly about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, even for some of the younger players, younger than Morgan, if John were there, at least he could be a calming influence them and give them some worldly advice. Like they all know Ian LePerrier, right? They all know him now through camp and everything else, but they also know that he's not going to be their coach when it comes to the NHL. Now, again, the guys who were drafted this year, I'm removing them from it. But for everybody else, there could have been some nice things for them, like a Helgi Grans, like he could have pulled him aside and said, "Hey, this you did really well, this you didn't, but I like what I'm seeing." Those kinds of things, those are kinds of things that if you get that instant um, gratification on the bench could really help your game. But when the guy's watching upstairs, you're not going to get that information until the next day.
Right. And I would say it's a similar situation in terms of that communication with Sean Walker. Schwartz doesn't know Sean Walker. He
No.
said as much, in media availability. Said specifically he has to get to know him, that he's heard how competitive he is and likes that he's a right-handed shot, and knows he was in a tough spot in LA and this is a fresh start for him. Well, how is he supposed to get a fresh start, without having that relationship building starting in the preseason?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and if it's a new era of Orange, they started off with a 6-0 loss. So, like, it doesn't help the marketing.
No, that's for sure. All right. Well, we are going to try and move forward and talk about what we learned. Did anybody earn a spot, and who still has a lot to learn? And we will get to that coming up next. All right, Russ. So I think that we got to look at this like in terms of who earned another preseason game, who do we want back so we can learn more and they can learn more, and then who didn't we see that we hope is in the second game. And I'm not sure that they're going to make any cuts after this first game. They'll probably do it after the second game, right?
I mean, it depends. I saw some teams do it after the first, but I think they will probably do it after the second. I think the drafted guys will get one more game. But look, if they sent like Tuamala back, if they
Yeah.
sent Furry back, if they sent, I wouldn't argue with them. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Well, so in terms of, who do we think earned another game? I definitely want to see more from Oliver Bonk. I think I want to see him at least like for
Yeah, I
one
think
more
he gets one
game.
more game. I think he was engaged and he was blocking shots, and I think at times, yeah, maybe things got away, but it got away from veterans too. So yeah, I wouldn't have no problem with that.
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier, I want to see him in a pairing that's not with Nick Sealer. I think
Right.
that would go a long way in terms of, him figuring out his game a little bit more.
Yes.
And I think that would be beneficial for him as well to play with like a more skilled defenseman on that pairing. I do think Matt Brown has earned another game.
Yeah, I would give him
Um,
another one.
I think that, when you're talking about guys that came back from mistakes or who created chances for themselves, Matt Brown did that in this
Mhm.
game. And not a lot of guys did, but he did a couple of times. He rang one off the post
Mhm.
and, so close. And so I really think they should have him back for another game.
Yeah, I would give Brown another one. I'll give Lixell another one. Um,
Hmm.
like I told you, I think Grands is making the team. So and he was fine, good enough. Uh, I think that's why they're putting him in that role now because they know that they need that someone in that role for the regular season, and I think he's got the fast track.
Yeah, and you talked about Ollie Lixel, who was one of our favorite guys who got kind of a raw deal last season, and I definitely want him back straight in to the second preseason game.
Yeah,
I feel like there were moments where he tried to make things happen, and when he gets going with chemistry with guys, he gets better and better, and he just needs time to build that chemistry. And so I think that is something that's important to his game, so I wanna see him again. Cam York's gotta get back
but
on the
one thing
horse.
before you go to York, he was out there with Forster, right? And
Yeah,
and it looked like Lixell was doing some of the hard work for Forster. What I didn't like from Forster is he wasn't moving his feet enough. He just
yeah,
wasn't like getting open enough. I think he was expecting shots to sort of be fed to him, and I don't think he was hungry enough. I know it's a terrible
no.
thing to say for a guy who's supposed to be trying to make the team, but I mean, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I think Lixell definitely was doing a lot more of the work, and, Frost was, centering that line sometimes,
Yeah,
and I feel like there was a little bit of a disconnect there, and I really wanna see more of Frost and Brink out on the ice together
that's
more.
fair.
I think that the way Morgan Frost's game is, I think it could bring out the best in Bobby Brink and give him more opportunities at some higher quality shots.
Yeah, he's taking shots on net from far away, and again, the thing that I'm really disliking about Brink's game is he gets that shot on net, and you don't see him again after that. There's no second shot. There's no puck
Right.
possession. It just they lose the possession. I wish the coaching staff would work with him on that.
Yeah, I do too. Going back to Cam York, I think I maybe want to see him with Mark Stahl.
Yeah, that would be good actually.
I think that that would settle Cam York's game down a little bit
Mhm.
and just give him the confidence to be able to try some of the things offensively, make some of the moves that he was successful in out on the ice last season, like especially toward the end of last season. I just think he needs that calming presence, and I think in this situation Mark Stahl could be that guy.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right because now we don't know is he going to play on the left side? Is he going to play on the right side? I don't know. See, you don't want him to get to the point where he's in the middle of preseason and he's unsure of things.
Mhm. Yeah, that is a huge deal. As far as guys who we did not see in this first game who absolutely need to check in for this second game, I think Tanner Lazinski and Alexis Gendron are two of them. I
Mhm.
think that Gendron absolutely deserves a game. And since Wade Allison got the last minute call up, I think that it'll be interesting to see if Allison goes into that second game with Lazinski the way they've been pitted against each other so far
Right.
in camp.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, but with Gendron, I think it's important for him to get an NHL level game.
Yeah, he's got to get in. I agree.
So
We got to see what he can do.
yeah, I think that he could surprise a lot of people. So I'm looking forward to that, especially against the Islanders, who have a completely different system than the Devils
They do.
do.
They're not as fast as the Devils, so maybe it could be a thing for Genjon to help the team because the team just did not look fast tonight.
Yeah, and I think Ronnie Attard could benefit from that
Yes,
as well. I think he's sort of in no man's land right now.
it really is,
Uh,
and it's kind of a shame. It's like
uh-huh.
you that's where we were like, well, you got all these veteran defensemen, and if you thought Adder was close, he's no closer now because you have too many bodies.
Absolutely. So I think that, if he could have a good showing in a second game,
Could help.
I think that would bode really well for him, especially given how poorly the blue line played in the first game. I think if you can set yourself up against that, I think anybody who comes into this game who didn't play in the first game, it really has a good opportunity here. And I think Adard is one of those guys for sure.
Yep, I'm with you.
As far as the veterans, I'm sure we're gonna see, Cates and Lawton on a line together out
Yeah,
there. Maybe they'll throw Tyson Forster in again with them instead and see how it
he's
goes,
going to
but,
play every preseason game. I'm pretty sure of
y
that.
yeah, yeah, so that would be my preference. The 4th line will probably check in, so we'll have Delorier, Paling, and Hathaway out there, knocking people around, hopefully, and knocking
That's fine. I
the
mean,
the
whatever.
Islanders
They got to
prospects
practice
around
too.
and
The
yeah.
Islanders will definitely have a fight, so that's the right team to do it against. So yeah, that's fine.
My other question is, will Risto Sandheim be a thing in that
Probably.
game? Yeah, even though they've been split up in training camp, I think they get put together for this game.
Yeah, I could see them getting put back together. I mean, again, if things continue to kind of go south a little bit on not knowing what the top pairing is going to be, then you might have to consider that as the top pairing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we'll talk more about that game against the Islanders and what we want to see from the team on tomorrow's show. Plus, we'll have our mailbag, like we talked about. So get those questions in via Twitter at Lockdown Flyers. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.